After a long 77 days, the summer transfer window has finally slammed shut on Celtic. And here to help me make sense of it all, at least partly, is Hamish from Celtic A.M. Hamish is joining us all the way from Melbourne. Hamish, thanks for making the effort to do so. How's things in your part of the world this morning?
All good, yeah. Quiet. 8:20 this morning, Tino. So, yeah, it's different having a transfer window shut at this time when you're waking up to the news rather than trying to stay awake. But Celtic have done a bit of business as well, so there's plenty to chat about.
It's been an early start for you. I know you've done a few things. You're obviously a man that gets around the channels, including your own one, but you've had a busy start to the morning.
Yeah, I have. I was just on the Celtic way. There's probably the same people probably in your comment section that I've just thought, yes, I've just got rid of that guy, and there he is popping up again. I'll try not to say the same things and doing some stuff for my own channel as well, Celtic A.M. So that'll be up later for anyone who's interested in that. So yeah, it's been busy, but it's enjoyable.
Good stuff. A shameless plug there for Celtic A.M, and we're not even 2 minutes in, but fair enough. Hamish, just to get us cracking, I'd like to put you on the spot and ask for your one-line summary of the business Celtic have done this window. So in and out, what's your one-line summary of that?
Better late than never. Maybe would that just about sum it up? Took its time, but we got there in the end. I'm probably pretty pleased with it as well.
Yeah, it's pretty punchy, but I'll take that. It's a decent summary of all. Just in terms of the main headlines, Hamish, so what we've seen in this window, we've witnessed the record signing in Celtic's history. It's just been confirmed in the last, 20 minutes. Arne Engels arrives for £11 million and a 4-year deal from Augsburg. That is massive. We've also concluded our record sale this window. Matt O'Reilly going for an initial 26 million, rising potentially to 30 million. We've signed 8 players in total. I'm including Luke McCowan in that because that looks like that will go through. So 8 players in total, spending the ballpark of £31 million to do so. And we've also removed an incredible 18 players from the first team squad. So that includes 12 permanent deals and 6 on loan. We've brought in fees of £38.84 million in the process. Whatever way you look at it, and a lot of it's landed a wee bit late in the day. It's been a lot of work. There's been a lot of business done there. There's obviously going to be comments on how efficiently and effectively Celtic have spent, and some of those answers won't be realised until these players take to the park. But overall, Hamish, were you always confident that Celtic would get the business done at some stage in the window?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably at this stage, it's probably easy to say yes. I think maybe deep down I did. When there was prediction, you'll have seen it, there was predictions being made a week ago that was our business done and we wouldn't sign a player. I didn't ever think it was going to get to that stage. Like, I thought we would get in the positions that Rodgers wanted covered. The big question now is, have we brought in the quality to really improve the team? And I do genuinely think the jury is out on some of that, like Auston, Trusty. I think we'll need to wait and see. Yeah. I don't think that's a guaranteed success. Alex Valle, has come from Barcelona. That always gets you quite excited, but he hasn't played much first team football. So again, is that a dramatic improvement on Greg Taylor? I think the jury's out on that one. Arne Engels is the one that gets you so excited. I just think that's a massive signing. Just been called up to Belgium today. Like, everything you hear about him it gets you excited. So generally, I think we've done well, but we'll have to wait and see with these things. We'll have to wait and see how these guys get on. But Brendan Rodgers seems happy, much happier than he was a couple of weeks ago. So I think he's gotten what he feels he needed in the end. But equally, going forward, I think we have to be much better in windows. We shouldn't be here doing a transfer deadline day special. With all due respect, we shouldn't. The business should be done at the start of the window, and we should have our feet up on deadline day. That's how it worked under the previous manager in the main. I know we signed some players late, but certainly in his second summer window that was the case. And going forward, that's where Celtic need to be.
Yeah, do you know there's 4 guys that have signed this week, and Rodgers himself said it on Sunday, didn't he, after the St Mirren game? We should not be getting into the final week of the window in this position. And I'll maybe ask you for some thoughts at the end of the piece on what Celtic could and should be doing, better and more effectively moving forward. My general stance, Hamish, I've taken my lead off Brendan Rodgers. He's been quite, I think, quietly confident and certainly fairly calm throughout. He's not been getting too stressed out. He's had a couple of frank words to say,
mm-hmm.
back towards Michael Nicholson, and I think it's all been fair. I don't think he said anything over the top, but I think he's used his press conferences pretty well, pretty wisely, to get that point across that he knows there's work to be done, and it was over at the board. He was doing his part. He was coaching the players well. We've had a great start to the season, and it was up to those guys behind the scenes, those guys in the exec positions, to get him the players he needed. And it looks on paper like, for the most part, he's got them. Were you concerned, though, at any point, Hamish, that we weren't going to get these guys? The days and weeks were ticking by there, and obviously we've taken it right up to the bumper. Did you think at one point it wouldn't happen?
Yeah, it took its time, didn't it? I think you've been able to, looking back at it, you've probably been able to gauge how things were going from Brendan Rodgers' mood. And I always think, I don't know if you saw his press conference after the win we had at Easter Road, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and he was a little bit tetchy, I would say, with a few of the questions from the media. And I think looking back at that stage, that probably was the point when Brendan Rodgers was, really frustrated about things. I remember we had the whole ordeal with Mikey Johnson coming on as a forward, a striker for Celtic. Kyogo's injury stuff. Idah, the deal wasn't concluded at that stage, and then very quickly after that, Idah was brought in. So I think that was probably the point when Brendan Rodgers had his frank words. I have no doubt after that Hibs game that he and the Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay, whoever, he would have made his feelings clear. We have to get, and that's why Idah came in shortly after that. And I think since then, I don't know if you agree, he seemed a lot calmer after the St Mirren game on Sunday. I just thought he was pretty in control. That kind of told me we were going to do business in this final week, because he seemed very at ease. As much as his fans, we were looking at it going, we've only got 5 days left and we need maybe 4-5 players. He seemed relatively calm, and I think the other point you would make, the signings that we've got in the end have been, they look like Brendan Rodgers players, a lot of them, which I think's good news as well, because a year ago that wasn't the case. He was giving it all the chat about, I'm the coach, I improve the players, the club signs the players, and that always seemed a bit strange to me, a bit of a disconnect there. I think a year on, as much as a window at the start, everything took so long and dragged on, and that's not acceptable. I think we are in a better place transfer-wise, recruitment-wise, than we were a year ago.
Yeah, I think at this moment in time, he's just got far more control over the situation. He may as well be the de facto head of recruitment at this moment in time, given that Celtic, as far as we all know, don't have anyone in the building, with Mark Lawwell having moved on. So he's had to get far more involved this time around. There's no way you can tell me he was involved in the Louis Palmer deal and the Marco Tilio deal and all those various other ones. They happened too late in the day. And I think now we've seen his impact in January. I don't know how close he was to Nicholas Kuhn. I'd like to think very close, because that looks like an exciting one. Adam Idah was certainly his work, and obviously it remains to be seen, but it looks far more like Brendan Rodgers is taking quite a hands-on role. Actually, moving forward, again, I'll keep this to the end of the piece, but I'd quite like him not to take as hands-on a role. He's got a pretty busy job in his hands to try and retain the title and domestic success and whatever this new Champions League is going to look like, and that could be pretty exciting. He's got a lot of work to do, and I'd rather he'd someone in, whether it's a head of recruitment, director of football, or someone in a senior position there to help him out. But we'll get to all of that in due course. Last one, Hamish, before we get to those deadline day signings, as well as those incomings, and as I say, we're quite excited and we'll cover them just shortly. How important do you think it was to keep a hold of the likes of Rio Hatate, linked with Leicester, Kyogo, linked with Man City, and Carter Vickers, who I think was linked with a move to Turkey at one point? How vital are those three guys to what Celtic are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think for this model we've got to work, we've kind of got to accept that a star name is going to leave every summer. I'm not sure you can lose 2 star names. I think last year, as much as maybe people wouldn't consider Carl Starfelt a star, he was a very important player in the team, and to lose him and Jota in the one summer, I have no doubt affected us last season. I think if we'd have kept even one of them, our season would have won the league much more comfortably. I think last year, potentially, League Cup would have done better. Obviously, Aaron Moy moved on as well last year. So I think basically we all feel that one star player, one big name player, one really important player can be lost this summer. I'm not sure you can really lose two. I know Joe Hart moved on this summer, but that was slightly different, kind of out with her control. And obviously we replaced him well with Schmeichel. So I think when O'Reilly moved on, there was a feeling that we couldn't lose another one. Hatate, Kyogo, Carter Vickers are kind of the spine of the team, aren't they? So I didn't actually ever feel, maybe I got a bit worried with Kyogo, but I didn't ever feel the Hatate stuff was going to happen. Carter Vickers likewise. And I'm glad they've all stayed, because it really sets us up for a good season. We're going to miss O'Reilly, but I think, with Engels, potentially we've got someone who can maybe allow us to move on from Matt O'Reilly, not miss him too much.
Yeah, do you know? I think you're right. I think we were all resigned to losing Matt O'Reilly, so we've had a long goodbye, the long farewell, and we've taken our time to make our peace with it. But that, and if you added a Rio to that or a Kyogo, might not have felt quite so good. So I think now, that the window has slammed shut and all that stuff, I think overall it feels like we're in a pretty strong position to go and attack on all fronts, domestic and European. Before we kick on, Hamish, I want to thank everyone who's joined us in live. There's over 1,000 folk watching us just now. Clearly the Hamish factor. They've all tuned in for your early morning comments. But thanks to everyone who has joined us. If you do have any comments or questions for Hamish, please let us know and we'll do our best to get them. We're going to be here for around about half an hour, so we'll try our very best to get to any of your questions as we go through. Let's get to those main deals, those ones that were concluded this week, Hamish. So we know all about the previous signings: Kasper Schmeichel, Viljami Sinisale, 2 goalkeepers, Bernardo and Adam Idah. We know all about those 2 guys. Valle, who's just come in this week, and we might get to him in a second. But I want to look closer at the deadline day stuff. So Arne Engels, Auston, Trusty, and I think Luke McCowan. We're going to go with Luke McCowan. It's not been officially confirmed, but I think he's part of things. You've mentioned you're excited by Engels, and I think most folk are. This is the one deal we hope will go over the line. So in terms of his profile, 20-year-old midfielder, ex-Club Brugge youth, and he only joined Augsburg as a senior player in January 2023. As you mentioned, Hamish, he got his first call-up, to the Belgian national team just today. He's absolutely smashed Celtic's record transfer fee, which was the 9 million we paid for Odsonne Edouard back in June 2018. He signed a 4-year deal, £11 million as I said. There's a quote from Philippe Clement, you might have seen it down the rounds. He says, "Arne is one of the most exciting players I've ever seen. He would be world-class one day, and I hope I never have to play against him." Your fear is here, Philippe Clement. He could be playing against you on Sunday coming. What do you think of it all?
What do I think of Philippe Clement? Well, who would ever doubt that guy? He talks a lot of sense. I think I feel like everyone in the comments about Arne Engels, I'm just so excited. I was saying this earlier, I cannot remember the last player that we signed, when we actually signed him, that I was as excited about. I've not even seen the guy play a proper match, and I'm utterly convinced that he's going to be a great signing for us. It's like the kind of ambition you want to see the club show. He's played a lot of games already, and probably for me, probably the second strongest league in the world. Decent team in that league as well. I think they were 11th last year, so mid-table. He's viewed as a future Belgium international, and yeah, I mean he's not the finished article. I was looking at some tweets from Derek Ray, who's obviously seen a lot of him in Germany, and he was keen to point out he's not the finished article, and I think we need to remember that. As much as we've paid a lot of money for him, he's still a 20-year-old, and he's not going to be coming in and putting in the performances Matt O'Reilly was at the end of his time. But I think equally, having said that, I think he is someone who can come in straight away and be a player for us. I think he can be an important player pretty quickly, but I think there's going to be a lot of potential in him as well, and things over time that we see improvement there, and he's got the ideal manager he's working under. I'm so excited to see him play. For me, he would go straight in on Sunday. I don't think that will happen. I think Brendan Rodgers will go with Bernardo, just because you wonder what that would maybe do to Bernardo's confidence. To be fair, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would let it get to him too much, Bernardo. But I just feel Rodgers probably will go with Bernardo. But if I was the manager, Engels would start for me. I think, we go big with this one. We've gone big with the signing, record transfer. It's going to be a big deal whenever he starts. So why not just get him in, box office, derby, start him?
Yeah, I think we'd be all up for that. And ultimately, whether he starts on Sunday or very soon, you don't spend 11 million on anyone to sit him on your bench kicking his heels. Yeah. So very quickly, I think he'll establish himself as a starter at Celtic. And what you might have seen, Hamish, from some folks, when we started getting linked with Arne Engels, is people jumping on the age thing. 20-year-old, he's just a project, and I think that would be quite naive to look at him like that. And as you say, Derek Ray, a guy very well versed in German football, he's made some really positive noises, and I think, as you say, he's leaned towards the fact that he's not the real deal just yet, but that he very much could be. And I think Derek Ray's excited to see what he's going to do here. So I think it's a real one to get the fans excited about. Jim Kerr, not sure if it's simple minds Jim Kerr, but Jim Kerr of sorts is on the screen. He says, could Engels be the player to find the runs that Kyogo makes? That's an interesting one, Hamish. Have you looked at his profile? There seems to be a wee bit of confusion over, is he a defensive midfielder? Is he a more attack minded? I think he played on the right hand side at times. What's your interpretation from what you've read?
Yeah, he appears to be, in comparison to Matt O'Reilly, who he's clearly replacing, appears to be more defensively minded. I do think people, when they say that and think that, maybe underrate the defensive work Matt O'Reilly did at times in terms of pressing the game and also tidying up the game. But I think Engels appears to be maybe more of a box-to-box type player that you maybe see him popping up more around the pitch than O'Reilly did. But his stats on chance creation and stuff like that, I think, are still pretty high in a really strong league in the Bundesliga. So no, I think it'll be interesting to see where he fits in. I don't think he's going to be a number 6 or anything like that. I think that's Callum McGregor's role, and Engels will play next to Hatate. But Brendan Rodgers will get to work on him, and he's young enough that you can kind of mould him into whatever Brendan Rodgers wants him to be. Yeah,
and I think on that note, Rodgers himself will be delighted to secure a signing like this. It'll be really interesting to hear Brendan's comments. Probably be, not sure if he'll be asked pre-match as such on Sunday. There'll be more time to focus on it potentially after the game or into next week. Maybe some press conferences with these players. But I think this is what Brendan Rodgers lives for as a coach. He always backs himself to improve players, and he's got a good track record. His track record in terms of signing players is so-so. There's some that have worked for him, some not so much. But what he definitely has done throughout his career is he's improved players. He's done it at Celtic. He's done it notably with guys like Callum McGregor and various others that we're very familiar with. And I think Arne Engels will be the latest guy that he works his magic on. So looking forward to seeing that. You mentioned whether he might play as a number 6 or not. One guy we know who will definitely be our number 6, at least in terms of the number on his back, is Auston Trusty. So his deal was also confirmed earlier tonight. 26-year-old centre-half. He's joined us from Sheffield United. A fee around about £6 million. He joined them from Arsenal, but he never played 1 minute for Arsenal. He was signed and loaned out to Birmingham City and a few different things. But he comes here. He's got 2 caps for the USA. He's 6'3", and it's a 5-year deal worth £6 million to his club. What do you think of him? Is he the left-sided centre-half we've been crying out for?
Hopefully. Appears to have a similar profile to Cameron Carter-Vickers. Obviously, both American. I think Trusty can play in the left-hand side, a bit like when Carter-Vickers signed. We heard he was a right-back / centre-back. Seems strange to think of that now. Even the kind of clubs have played for, the fact he's been at Arsenal, Carter-Vickers had been at Spurs. So we've all been crying out for another Carter-Vickers. That's what I wanted from a centre-back. Put another Carter-Vickers next to Carter-Vickers and you'll have a hell of a partnership. Even better than the one he had with Starfelt. But to be honest, I would settle for that because I thought they were unbelievable together, Carter-Vickers and Starfelt, and I think we missed that last season. As good as Liam Scales was, and Liam Scales will have a part to play going forward, he's not just going to drop out of things completely. I think this is a signing we all wanted to see. It's some of the stuff you read maybe isn't entirely, positive about Trusty, but it's what players do for Celtic that I care about, so I'm going to judge him on what he does for Celtic. I don't think Spurs fans would have been too positive about Carter-Vickers when he joined us, and he's proven to be an unbelievable centre-back for us. So even if Trusty was nearly at the level of Carter-Vickers, those two could form a partnership. It will make such a difference, and we'll actually have a really strong defence, I think, with Kasper Schmeichel just behind them.
Yeah, and I don't know too much about Trusty. Maybe foolishly, I'm just presuming that if Arsenal saw something in him just a couple of years ago, then there must be something there. I'd like to think that he's a ball-playing centre-half, because I think that's what we're crying out for. I've got a lot of time for Liam Scales. He takes a lot of flack, but I think he's such an honest and committed player. But again, to a similar extent to Arne Engels, you're not paying $6 million for a guy to sit on the bench for Celtic. We can't afford to do that. That can't be the way it all plays out. So I think he's going to come in, and again, whether it's Sunday or moving forward, he's going to feature pretty soon. I'd mentioned the comment from Jim Kerr. I'm just going to bring Jim back up, because Jim is the Sully Shamrock who sends us lots of good comments back and forth on Twitter. I believe he is somewhere in the world, and it's 1:15 a.m. and he set the alarm to be here for this show. So thanks to Jim for doing so, and thanks to everyone else who continues to flood the comments. It's really great to see. The third one, Hamish, it kind of caught us off guard to an extent, and I'm not sure about it. It's Luke McCowan. As I say, it's yet to be confirmed, but it's looking very likely. He's a 26-year-old centre midfield. We'll be fairly familiar with him, given that he featured against us a few times for Dundee last season. I think he's the captain there at the moment. He broke through Ayr United as a winger, and I believe he only switched to centre mid fairly recently. It looks like it's going to be a 3-year deal, £1 million fee. Someone and a few folks in the comments have mentioned as well the fact that he's a homegrown player that can help with your Champions League quota. So maybe there's a bit of sense in that. But where does he fit in? Does this make sense in terms of Celtic's centre midfield? And does his signing make more sense at 26 years old than maybe a Lennon Miller at Motherwell, who a lot of folk were talking about?
Yeah, I think the homegrown aspect to this is definitely been important. Yeah, he's not necessarily a player that I would have had my eye on in terms of a future Celtic player earlier this summer. But I don't think every signing that we make needs to necessarily improve the first team. I think McCowan, while he probably doesn't do that, would all agree, can still come in and be a pretty important player for us. Brendan Rodgers wanted two midfielders. He clearly felt we needed two midfielders when Matt O'Reilly moved on, because we have lost a lot of midfielders this summer. Now, not a lot of them would have featured much, but you're talking Kwon, Kelly, Lawal, O'Reilly. Iwata's just moved on. People might know that. He's moved on permanently to Birmingham City, who are managed by Chris Davies. So we maybe discuss that, because I really like Iwata, but we're kind of down in numbers a bit. So McCowan maybe just makes a lot of sense. And as I say, it's not an earth-shattering deal. It's going to go massively under the radar in comparison to Engels and even Trusty. But I think McCowan might prove to be an effective signing for us. Reminds us a fair bit of the Johnny Hayes one a number of years ago. And Johnny Hayes didn't arrive with much fanfare. Johnny Hayes wasn't a spectacular player for Celtic. He's not going to go down as one of our best players of the last 10 years. But people remember him quite fondly because he offered us some big moments and was really dependable, mainly domestically, but also in Europe at times as well. And players have surprised us in the past, signed a number of players from smaller Scottish teams who have risen to the occasion and played better with better players around them. So yeah, maybe Luke McCowan can be that as well. I don't think he'll be an utter flop. I don't think we're going to look at this and go, that was an awful signing. I think we'll probably view this as being a signing that helped us domestically.
Yeah, I've always thought, Hamish, that Celtic should make more of signing the best of the rest within Scottish football. I think there's a lot of talent. And you look at the guys that have left Scottish football in recent times. I think of Aaron Hickey, who was on Celtic's books as a youngster. Lewis Ferguson, who's tearing it up. Josh Dodge, who went out to Italy as well. These are talented guys. John McGinn, what an example as well. We'll face him in the Champions League. These are guys that I think Celtic, to an extent, maybe turned their nose up at. And it's funny. We are talking about, I think Brendan Rodgers mentioned that teams were trying to value Matt O'Reilly based on the league. They wouldn't pay the big bucks because it was Scotland. I think we ourselves have been guilty of that. We've been within Scotland and saying to these other clubs, well, we won't pay your money because he's only playing for Hibs, St Mirren, Dundee. So it's a funny one. You mentioned Johnny Hayes. Just as a quick aside, Johnny Hayes is now turning out for St Mungo's Amateurs over in Bishop Briggs, a club that I used to be involved with. And apparently he's absolutely tearing it up, as you'd expect at that level. and he's obviously now joined Celtic's academy, so he's keeping himself ticking over on the playing side while he's doing the coaching there. There's a comment, Hamish, I just want to pick up on, and it's from Brian Harkin. Brian Harkin, we were talking there about Luke McCowan, and he says he was brought in because he was a cheap option. Now, at different times in Celtic's history, you might be able to make that, accusation, if you like, that we're just doing it on the cheap. But we've just smashed our transfer record fee tonight in the last hour or so. We've paid 8.5, potentially rising, for Idah. We've paid a few million quid for Paulo Bernardo. You can say a lot of things about the Celtic board at different times, and a lot of it would be justified. But you can't say they're not spending the money, and you can't say we're doing it on the cheap, can you?
No, I mean, we've spent more money this window than ever before. I think the money is there to be spent, though, and I think it's about time that we've spent the money, because, and spent the money on quality rather than just numbers, as seemed to be the case last year. So, no, I mean, we've spent the money. I don't think every signing we make has to be a spectacular one. I think, we were calling out for quality this summer, and I think, as I say, time will tell with some of it. But I think, Luke McCowan, sometimes a signing just makes sense. It's no secret, I think the club were probably looking at other players previously, Matthias Boguts and Alvin Sanchez, and they may be players we revisit further down the line. But McCowan may just have made a lot of sense for the club to get that over the line. And it is imminent, Tino, because the club have tweeted a video of Luke Littler, the darts player, with the caption "one more." So I think it's very obvious what the tweet's going to be. I would say in the next minute we'll get it, because there's usually a couple of minutes lag. So I'll bring you news of that when it comes in. But Luke McCowan's going to be coming in. Sounds
good. What do you make of that sketchy Luke Littler patter? Is that working for you? Is he accepting that?
They've had a few today, haven't they? What was the one they had? Time for a deadline day unique angle for Engel, and there was some wrestling patter as well. Yeah, that's it being announced. McCowan has arrived. Celtic are delighted to confirm the permanent signing of Luke McCowan from Dundee on a 3-year deal. I'm just seeing if there's any other kind of information here. Brendan Rodgers saying, "We are really happy to welcome Luke to Celtic. He's a player with great ability, energy and commitment, and we are sure he will be a very positive addition to our squad." So Luke McCowan's in. I've always quite liked him as a player at Dundee, to be honest. I've always looked at him and thought he's quite tidy on the ball, bit of kind of personality about him as well, which I quite like. So I don't think he'll be fazed by playing for Celtic. So it's going to be interesting.
It is an interesting one, and as you say as well, I don't think folk are expecting McCowan to come here and tear it up. He might do, and that'd be a welcome bonus, but he could also just be a guy that comes in and does a really solid job and plays his part within a squad. Celtic in any modern side can't be successful with just 11, 12, 13 players. It's a squad game now, particularly with the 5 subs, and Luke McCowan will very possibly find himself not always starting for Celtic, but maybe having a notable impact when he does. Tell you what, Hamish, just to confirm the incomings in, you're right, Brendan Rodgers repeatedly used words to the effect of, "I'm looking for quality rather than quantity," and I think by and large he's got that. But despite making that statement, we've still signed 8 players. So just to confirm the 8 deals that have now been confirmed by the club: Kasper Schmeichel, he arrived on a free transfer from Anderlecht. You've got Viljami Sinisale, another goalkeeper, £1 million from Valle. Paulo Bernardo, I think £3.5 million from Benfica. Idah, 8.5 million, potentially rising, from Norwich. Alex Valle, he's in on loan from Barca. And as we've covered there, Auston Trusty, £6 million from Sheffield United. Arne Engels, £11 million from Augsburg. And now Luke McCowan, £1 million from Dundee. Someone asked in the comments what we've paid out in terms of the fees. I covered it at the top of the show, but just to confirm, if my maths are accurate, which there's every chance they won't be, but I'm looking at something like 31 million, so it's a huge outlay. But that said, it's covered by the sales, and I'll rattle through them just quickly. Joe Hart has been all moved on. He retired. Sead Haksabanovic went to Malmo for 1.7 million. Matt O'Reilly, biggest sale from Celtic. He's going to Brighton for 26 million, potentially rising to 30. James McCarthy's been released, I think, not 100% confirmed, but I think that's the case. O has gone to Genk for 4.5 million. Rocco Vata and Daniel Kelly have both gone to the Championship to Watford and Millwall, respectively, for 240k and 400k. Benjamin Siegrist went to join Lenny at Rapid Bucharest, but Lenny didn't hang around much for that. free transfer there. Bosan Lawal, 3 million to Stoke City. Kobayashi, a free to Portimonense. Mikey Johnson, my heart is breaking, £3 million to West Brom. And finally, also confirmed just recently there, Tomoki Iwata to Birmingham City. No fee yet confirmed there, but fees received generally around about the ballpark of 38 million. What do you make of it, Hamish? That's a lot of work. As I said at the top of the piece, the board will come in for criticism at different times, and it can be justified. There's no doubt about that. But somebody somewhere in the backroom team, or the exec team, should I say, has done a lot of work there to free up a lot of players and give Brendan Rodgers the tight squad that he wants to work with.
Yeah, moved on a hell of a lot of fringe players. Really good work. I think the squad is in terms of the size of the squad. I think it's in a better state than it was at the start of the window. I think the discussion over whether the squad's stronger generally is one that people can have, because obviously we've lost Matt O'Reilly. But no, I'm glad we've moved these guys on, and we've kind of got good fees for a number of them as well. And I think that's a sign that money is being spent these days. And there's so much made of Idah coming in and how much he cost us. But like, you sell Johnston, Lawal, and 3 fringe players, and you've like more than covered the money for Idah. Yeah. And obviously guys like Haksabanovic have earned his money as well. So I think clubs down south are and in Europe are spending money on players that we don't necessarily think are necessarily starting 11 Celtic players. So I think it's been really good work from the club. I'm pleased with it. I'll need to take a look at the full squad. I still think there's a couple of players in there that I'm not sure about, like Yang, for example. I would probably have had him go out on loan, but maybe Brendan Rodgers feels we're just a little bit light, having not signed another winger. Not quite sure in Palma, if I'm honest, but I think he'll have something to offer maybe this season. But I think generally the squad looks, you're always looking at, do we have 2 players you would trust for every position? And I think generally we're getting there. Left wing would probably be my worry if Idah was to pick up an injury. Maybe we could move, James Forrest out there. But I think we might have done all right out of this window the more I think about it.
Yeah. I've got a question for you. I'm going to put you in the spot. There was a lot of angry folks, a lot of noise over the last, let's say, 6 weeks and even beyond. What did I say? 77 days this transfer window has taken across the summer. I think it opened on the 14th of June. It's closed tonight, Friday the 30th of August. There were so many people at different times, wherever you want to look, whether you're on message boards or social media or here on YouTube or anywhere else, saying this transfer window's got Peter Lawwell's prints all over it. This is a disaster, shambles, etc., etc. We're not getting any deals done. This is it. Idah will be the last guy we sign, etc., etc. And I can understand that frustration at the time. I really can. And we spoke openly on our show. Paddy and Miff were particularly outspoken at the time, just about what was going on. Now that we've done what we've done, smashed spent 20 million on 2 players alone, Arne Engels and Adam Idah, plus everything else that's come in, 8 players in total. Is Peter Lawwell due some sort of apology or some sort of acceptance that, well, I've got to say, I don't think he was anything to do with the transfer dealings. I did accept that his influence was maybe around the club, but you can't say they've not spent money. And certainly at this moment in time, and it's early bells, the window's just closed, it feels like they've done a pretty good job. Whether it's from anyone tuning in here just now, let us know in the comments, let us know your own thoughts, Hamish, but is he due an apology? Was he right to tell folk to calm down on Sunday at St Mirren?
See, this is the thing. I've been weighing this up all summer, because obviously I'm doing, videos like this all summer, and it's really difficult because part of you saying, right, we should wait until the end of the window. The window should be judged at the end of the window. And I think that's fair enough, but also you have to call it as things are going at the time. Because I feel like last year, and I was in this camp where last year things weren't happening. We weren't getting the quality we needed, and I was saying, just calm down, judge at the end of the window. And then, the end of the window was a complete car crash. We ended up with players, rushed into signings, Nat Phillips, etc. So there's always a danger that you're, people like Peter Lawler, being called out for things at the time because the frustration is there. And there's no doubt the frustration was there on Sunday. I don't necessarily agree that the way that was handled generally, in his face and all that kind of stuff. But I think during the summer there was a real frustration, not really towards Law for me personally, because I don't think, I agree with you, Peter Law isn't involved in negotiations. Like, it's Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay that handle that from a Celtic point of view these days. Law's just the chairman. So yeah, it's you have to call it as you see it at the time, and things were very frustrating. But I guess from the club's point of view, they would have been pretty relaxed, and they probably will be looking at it now going, God, we do get a really hard time. I have no doubt inside the club they feel that the supporters are bang out of order for giving them a hard time. But as I say, we only called it as we saw it at the time. We wanted the club to show ambition. The club weren't showing ambition. I think there's parts of the window that weren't acceptable to me, like the signings of Idah. The signing of Adam Idah dragged on far too long. I think that's something going forward that I want to see Celtic work on. If a player's worth that, I know you don't you don't allow clubs to take you for a ride, etc. But you pay what a player's worth, and you get Adam Idah in for the first day of pre-season. Don't let it drag on. Same with Paulo Bernardo. You get a goalkeeper in a bit earlier than we did for the start of pre-season. I think these are things that Brendan Rodgers feels we need to work on and not go up until the end of the window. Shouldn't be taken until the final day. But equally, Nicholson, Mackay, Law, Celtic, whatever you want to say, I guess they've delivered in the end, and they'll probably feel that they maybe should be showing a bit more respect from the support. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I have no doubt that's how they feel, because that's the impression you get. I mean, remember during the COVID season, not to go back to everyone, but like everything was going wrong and the club were still kind of in denial about it all, and they were all going, nah, it's just supporters getting worked up and all that kind of stuff. I don't think they have a great amount of time for the support, if I'm totally honest. But the feeling's probably mutual. The main thing is the team is as strong as it can be, and the team win, and hopefully that's going to be the case going forward.
Yeah, and I think the guys at the top of the tree at Celtic just now, Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay and various others, I know on good authority they are genuine Celtic fans, but I think they also, they're very well paid to do the job they do, and I think they also accept that a certain amount of flack comes with that job. That's just par for the course. That's part of the territory here at Celtic. And it's also because it's such an emotional thing, Hamish. It means so much to everybody. Celtic's more than just a pastime or a hobby. There's 2,500 folk joining us here midnight on a Friday night, obviously morning time for you in Australia, and folks around the world, as I mentioned. It means so much, and it's such an emotional thing, and that's why people get uptight and anxious and excited about it. And from a fan point of view, I mentioned Brendan Rodgers was pretty relaxed because he probably knew that we were probably going to get these deals. Arne Engels was maybe quite advanced at that point, and other conversations were taking place. But we were, as you would have to be, we were kept in the dark. You can't just announce everything. Oh, we're talking to this guy, we've made a bid for this guy. It's not how it works. So as fans, you're kind of the last to know, but that's how it has to be. But it's because we've been burnt by previous windows. I think that's where the tensions came from. And in terms of just, I've been a wee bit flippant whether, Peter Law was due a genuine apology or not. But there's some very mixed replies to that. Some folks are very supportive of what the board are doing, some far less so. And that's fine. That's what makes up Celtic. Everyone's got different feelings and different opinions. But I hope now, I'm really glad actually, in a positive way, that the window's shut. We seem to have done good business. And to your point, we can now start to really focus on the football side of things and really enjoy that. What I'll do, Hamish, to round things off, or to start to round things off, I've got a few quick fire questions for you, just 4. Nothing too taxing, as I say. I know it's early bells for you over there, but 4 questions, and keen to hear your quick thoughts to these. So I'll get started. So number 1, what signing of the 8 are you most excited about?
Arne Engels, 100%. Can't wait to see him in action. Is that quick enough?
That's as quick as I would expect it from you, so all good with that. Number 2, and I've gone through the various players there. Who are you most disappointed to lose from Celtic this window?
Again, I mean, obvious one would be Matt O'Reilly. I won't go for that. I think kind of losing to Moki Iwata permanently. I don't know, disappointment. Like I'm not going to go and cry myself to sleep later on or anything like that. But I liked Iwata. I And I hope Iwata's left permanently as well. It's not a loan, so we're not going to see him back at Celtic. It's over. I hope he's remembered fondly, Iwata. I know he was never anything unbelievable for us, but I thought he really stepped in some big moments for us last season as well. So, and never kind of huffed that he wasn't playing. Always just came on and did what was asked. So I realise this isn't very short, by the way, so apologies, but I'll say to Moki Iwata.
Yeah, the slow fire question and answer round. No, I think I'd often said that I thought, a term I use, I need to stop using it, but I thought Iwata had something about him. He showed in flashes. I've said the same about Yang and Palma as well, and that's not gone down well, but I thought Iwata did have something to offer, but maybe Brendan Rodgers just couldn't find a place for him. He was never going to replace Callum McGregor, and maybe he was limited in what he could do. Remember, he signed as the J-League's Player of the Year, I'm sure. He came with a decent pedigree, but it never quite worked out in the way that a Reo Hatate and a Maeda and Kyogo did in terms of coming from that part of the world. I need to ask your thoughts. I need to squeeze it in here. I've been outspoken in my support for Mikey Johnson, and I'm disappointed. I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but I've always thought it's a shame that such a talented player, he clearly had lots of talent. There's a question on whether he had the headspace or the mentality to be a success at Celtic, but I was disappointed the way it's all played out, and the writing was on the wall. It was pretty clear that it wasn't quite going to work out in the last 6 to 12 months, and he now moves on. What was your own feelings on Mikey over the last wee while?
Yeah, I think it just reached the point where he needed to move on for his own good, for the Celtic support's good. I just think that relationship had kind of reached breaking point, hadn't it? And it wasn't doing anyone any good at all, to be honest. I remember a game in Ange's first season. It was a cup game against Wraith Rovers in the Scottish Cup where Johnson started, and even that day the crowd were really on his back, and I thought that day, like, this needs to end now, and that's like probably 3 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. So I wish him good luck. I really hope he goes and has a good career, and £3 million isn't to be sniffed at either, so good.
Yeah, and I think whether it's, Mikey Johnson down at West Brom or Tomoki Iwata at Birmingham, maybe a wee bit less so Daniel Kelly, that leaves a kind of sour taste. But you want to keep an eye on these guys to an extent and just see how successful they are or not. Yeah. For the most part, I think we wish them all the best and would like to see them do well wherever their career takes them. Question number 3, Hamish. Is there anyone that we missed out on that you were particularly excited by? You've mentioned Mateus Bogus. Alwyn Sanchez was quoted recently. Jota was mentioned in passing. Even guys like Ben Doak, Owen Beck. Anyone through the window that you're disappointed we never got?
Potentially, you'd look at the centre-back situation. I mean, Darragh O'Shea went for 15 million, so I don't think that was ever actually feasible, but I guess we were linked with him, and looking back, that was quite an exciting one. Chris Mepham, I think, was another one I looked at with decent pedigree. I just hope that Auston Trusty proves to be a brilliant signing for us. I hope we're not looking at that other players potentially missing out, and hopefully Trusty does excellent for us. But I'd say maybe someone like, I don't know, Darragh O'Shea or Chris Mepham. Yeah,
I know you don't really want to. Here's what you could have won. Here's this guy tearing it up down south, and our guy's not doing it. A few comments there just on that question for Lennon Miller. I know we mentioned him briefly. Is he a guy you'd like to have signed? He would seem like an obvious one. 2 million to Motherwell, and loan him back if you want to while he's still developing. But I don't know. Neither Celtic or any other club seem to have come in for him.
Maybe one to watch going forward. I think he'll probably move on next summer, Lennon Miller. So it might be one to keep an eye on. I mean, potentially go to Italy or something like that. That would be the obvious move for him, rather than us. But I mean, we did it with David Turnbull, so we've clearly got a decent enough relationship with Motherwell. So one to keep an eye on next year, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think he just turned 18 last weekend, so still a very young guy and big future ahead. Question number 4, and Jerry Watt. Jerry's a good mate that I know well. He asked similar question in the comments. Do any of these new guys, Hamish, and I mean the deadline signings, and you can throw Alec Bailly into that, do any of them start against Rangers on Sunday? I know you've leaned towards the fact that you'd love the box office move of Arne Engels starting. Do you hear any of the others start for you?
No. I think Engels, yes, for me. As I say, I don't think Rodgers will, but I would just go for it. I think centre-back's such an important position and the relationship between those two that I think you'd go with Scales and Carter Vickers. I think equally you'd go with Greg Taylor at left back, and I don't think Luke McCowan would start the game clearly. So yeah, I think Engels is the only one potentially. I would say I'm guessing maybe some people would look at Trusty and say, yeah, get him in right away. He knows Carter Vickers. I think you're maybe risking more than you need to at that point. I think Liam Scales will be absolutely fine on Sunday. There's actually an argument in recent weeks Scales has maybe been the stronger of the two centre backs, possibly. So you'd keep him in for sure on Sunday. So I'll say Engels.
Yeah, that's a decent answer. I think whether any of these guys start or not, though, it's exciting. You always like to see a new signing come off the bench or whatever. And I'd like to think the game will go in Celtic's favour on Sunday, from start to finish. But if it doesn't, if you need a lift or if you're looking to add a fifth, I don't know. You look to the bench and you've maybe got Arne Engels, exciting stuff. Valle, who's more than just a left back. He's that kind of attacking left back. He's going to be wearing number 11 on the back of his shirt. Could we see something from him? Luke McCowan even. I just think it's always exciting for fans to have the potential of seeing a new guy. And hopefully we'll see some, whether from the start or not, on Sunday. Hamish, we're very much getting to end the piece. But one last big question, and I think you've covered it in parts throughout the conversation here, but what needs to change in future windows for Celtic? I think, as I say, it looks like we've done good business, but there have been frustrations, least of all for the manager. If the manager's frustrated, that's not a good thing. If the guy that's the figurehead for your club is frustrated, then that can't be good moving forward. So what can we do? Should we be getting deals done earlier? Should we be prepared to pay the going rate rather than haggle over 300, 400, 500 grand? Should we make sure we're always signing a blend of youth and experience? What do you think? Anything like that or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy from a fan's point of view to look at it and just to say, yeah, just pay that little bit more. Stop haggling over small amounts of money and get the players in nice and early. I would genuinely look at that. Clearly, our recruitment team needs to be restructured. Rodgers has said that is going to happen. So we'll kind of keep an eye out for how that moves now that the window's shut. And yeah, I think we need to just press on with stuff much earlier in the window, be much more settled. We can't be going into another window, final 5 days needing 4 players. Now I know we got those 4, but that's not a position a club like Celtic should be in. And next year we're going to have European qualifiers. So it's going to be a different summer for us, back to that kind of nonsense. So we can't afford to be risking things. It's interesting because actually looking at the squad, you even looking at January as well, you wonder where do we look at now to improve the squad. I guess things will come up, but the squad seems quite well rounded at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see in January if we do move for players and what positions those would be in. But certainly next summer, early business. Let's not be here again 4 or 5 days from the end of the window needing 4 players. That's not tenable.
Yeah, and I think taking it right up to the bumper, it carries an element of risk. We've announced Arne Engels, 10 minutes, 10 to 11. Luke McCowan, just after the deadline as such, but obviously they were doing the paperwork. Anything can happen. A medical can go wrong. Another club can outbid you. The player himself can have a last-minute change of heart, and all these things would leave you with nothing. So Celtic, it looks like we put all our eggs in the Arne Engels basket, and that's worked out for us on this occasion. It can easily go wrong. There's so many things that are at play during any sort of transfer and any sort of pursuit of any player, and we're fine now. We're over that, but there's lessons to be learned. And I'd like to think Michael Nicholson's only been a chief exec for a year and a half, 2 years now. I'd like to think he's learned some lessons. Of course he will. If he's been at the coalface of a lot of Celtic's dealings, and his other roles at the club over the years, but now he's the man calling the shots and signing the checks and all that stuff. And I think everyone, Brendan Rodgers included, will have learned a lot during this window, and let's hope we can take those lessons forward in a positive sense. Hamish, just as we start to wrap up, your final thoughts on what we've done, how we're shaping up at this moment in time, and also just a quick reminder where folks can find you on an ongoing basis.
Really excited for the season to come, everyone. I think we've got a real opportunity after the Champions League draw, the business we've done in the market, and the fixture on Sunday. Real opportunity for a glorious season for us all, and one we can really, really enjoy. So I genuinely can't wait for it. I can't wait for this new Champions League format. Can't wait for the opportunities we've got in that competition. So bring it on, really, is the message. And I'm probably in more places than Asim, which is some achievement. So I've got my own channel these days, Celtic A.M. So you can check it out if you want to also do the Celtic Way stuff. I know you've been on there as well, Tino. So we all kind of cross over into each other's world, don't we?
Yeah, that's it. We're all pals at the end of the day. I think, though, a lot of folks in the live, as I say, there's 2,500 folks here, which is great. A lot of folks will already be aware, but if not, you need to check out Celtic AM. It's a daily channel that Hamish puts fresh content out on, and it's exceptional stuff covering all things Celtic. Hamish, huge thanks for joining us here all the way from Melbourne. As I say, I know it's early morning. I know you've had a busy start to the day, but hopefully now you can go away and enjoy the rest of your weekend, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Another big one coming up on Sunday for you, and it's a big day for all of us. We'll be back with the final whistle show shortly after that game. But in the meantime,